I now move on to the work of Max Weber, who I will refer to only briefly. The significance here for a study of phenomenology is that Alfred Schutz, who was a student of Husserl, brought together a study of phenomenology by combining insights from Husserl with the work of Max Weber. Weber and Husserl were roughly parallel, and so there are insights that can be gained by bringing the two together. Weber's overall theory is a theory of action, and it was that which Schutz seized upon. But the other dimension is that Weber saw sociology as a science, just as Husserl had seen phenomenology as a science as well, essentially a science of consciousness. Weber had defined sociology as a science which attempts to understand social action interpretively and thereby to explain it causally in its cause and effect. The words there that I think are particularly important are science, which I've referred to briefly. Secondly, social action, which will be crucial in Schutz's work. And interpretively, because Schutz's work, as with Weber's, is a study of interpretation. And finally, causal or causality. Action, first, is human conduct which may consist of physical activities, but it also includes deliberately refraining from acting in a particular way. Obviously, it includes mental activities, but essentially it is intentional action. And Schutz was to realize this connection between Weber and Husserl, the emphasis on intention. It's only considered action by Weber when the acting person attaches a meaning to it. They may misinterpret, they may attribute an incorrect meaning, but nevertheless they actually address a meaning to the particular action. And it's in that meaning giving and meaning interpretation that Schutz is to expand and see the significance of Weber. Now, for the sociologist, there could be a number of possibilities. Do you look for typical examples of actions and then average them in some way? Or do you, as Weber did, to look for ideal types, to find some way of typifying and saying these are particular kinds of action? Schutz will build on that with his notion of typification. Weber concentrated on rational conduct and also traditional conduct. But perhaps the term from Weber that is most useful here is the concept of Verstehen, or understanding. It's closely connected with his theory of subjectively meaningful conduct. Conduct that we understand subjectively. We grasp the subjective intended meaning or not. Clearly, when thinking of a disaster of some sort, the meaning of it may escape us or not be apparent immediately. It may be something that is constructed afterwards, can of course be misconstructed. Many revisionist accounts of historical events fall precisely into that category. But understanding can be empathetic, it can be rational. For Weber, the emphasis was on rational understanding, but Schutz was to realize that many of our forms of understanding are not necessarily rational. What we look for is what is meaningfully evident. for it may not be causally certain, but we nevertheless attribute a meaning to it. And so it's how we search for and interpret those meanings. Causal laws may be something that is too tough a criterion to deal with. So what, for Weber, the sociologist can deal with are typical chances. And Schutz was to firm this up with a study of typification, to say it's not just typical chances, but these chances, these actions, follow a pattern. In just the same way, sociologists of natural disasters and response to natural disasters, or studies of acts of terrorism, acts of warfare, can look to see what forms of typical development there may or may not be. Of course, they can cry out for reinterpretation, but it was Weber who gave us these particular emphasis on the subjective. He also gave us the emphasis on interpretation and on action. Schutz, to whom we will turn next, was to develop this through a set of categories which became particularly important for phenomenology.